A question I usually get in my weekly live Fusion Zoom class is, how would you approach this design? And the student will show a model from Thingiverse Printables, makerworld, or some other 3D file site. A specific example from a recent class is this pop-up snowman. It's a really cool design by 3D Paint Lab and an awesome holiday print. So I thought I'd do a video and not only show an approach you can use to tackle this design, but just a general strategy you can take to reverse engineer an STL file and design it from scratch in Fusion. The video turned out to be a lot longer than I wanted, and I was thinking of maybe releasing it in 3 parts. But since it's so close to Christmas, I know I'm always late on these things. I thought, you may want to design and print your own and give it as a gift. So I'm just going to throw it all out there, even though it's kind of long. Enjoy the tutorial, and as always, leave your questions and comments below. And if you'd be interested in joining my online live class, I'm currently running a promotion where I'm offering it for half price. Check out the link below. We meet every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and I help you get unstuck with your Fusion models. So, all right, here's the tutorial. We'll start by bringing in the mesh file. Now, this normally takes the form of either an STL file or a 3MF file. Either way, the workflow is the same. We're going to go into our mesh environment, go to Create, Insert Mesh, click Insert from my computer or Select from my computer, and then grab the file, click Open. Fusion will bring in the file. Now here we can see the designer chose to export 3 instances of each model. We'll take care of that in a second, but what I like to do here, I'll toggle on origin, and you can see our bodies are not centered, so we're going to click Center. And that's going to distribute the center of mass, about the center origin there. And depending on the model, sometimes I like to click Move to Ground, and this will go ahead and place the bottom of the model there in line with the ground plane. So we'll click OK. All right, next I'll untoggle origin, and we'll get rid of the extra bodies here. So I'll expand to show all the bodies. I'm going to go to a front view, and I'm going to box select these 2 on the right, hold shift, and box select these 2 on the left. Right click on any one of these bodies and then hit remove or click remove. All right, now I'll show the origin. And here we're going to box select this entire body here, and notice you've got 3 bodies there selected. This is important because otherwise you'll end up moving one and not the rest. Right click and go to move copy, and we're going to take this and bring it to the center. We're mainly going to focus on this group right here. What I'm going to do here is just get it roughly centered, and then I'll show you how I'm going to fine tune it. So just aligning the Z axis here, that center origin, to the middle here of this model, we'll click OK. Okay, next, to fine tune that placement, what I will do is go back to my solid environment, click on create sketch, choose my front plane there. And here I'm going to draw a line. So L for line, I'm going to zoom in and get it lined up to that left edge, and then zoom out, move to the right edge here and place another line. All right, now you want to select that line, make sure you have it as a horizontal line. I can see there it is horizontal, so I'm good. Otherwise, I would just click that horizontal constraint. I'm going to take this line, move it down a little bit, and I want this line perfectly centered on that origin. So what I will do is click my midpoint constraint, click on the line, and click on the origin. And there it is. Okay, so now I can see that I was a little bit off here on getting this perfectly lined up. So here we're going to go ahead and adjust it. So I'm going to finish this sketch. But before we do that, let's rename these bodies here instead of mesh body 1, 2, and 3. So we know what we're selecting. I'm going to click here. That looks like the middle one that it's selecting. So I'll go ahead and call this middle. This one here is the outer, and this is the inner. That would mean this one here is the cover. So we'll call it that, or the top. All right, now let's go back to moving this into place here. So we just have to kind of nudge it over a bit. Now here again, you want to make sure you select all 3 models. So you can select the first one, shift select the last one. So middle, outer, and inner. I'm going to right click, move copy. Click here on set pivot, and then we're going to zoom in a bit. Place it right on that edge there. And then remember to go back and click the little green check mark. And then let's zoom out a little bit so we see the endpoint. Then I'm going to take this and move it all the way over so that I bring it right to that point here. Click OK, and there we have it. It's perfectly lined up. Okay, the next part in this really just involves tracing our mesh file. So to do that, we'll go back to our sketch here in our timeline, but be careful because watch what happens here when I click on the sketch to activate it. It's going to move this back to where it was. That's because this move feature was after I created that sketch. Well, now the beauty of Fusion is you can reorder things. So if we look at our timeline, I can actually take this move feature here and bring it to before the sketch, and you're going to see it reorders that. Now when I click to get into that sketch to edit it, it'll treat it as if I moved the item first and then created the sketch so that the line is perfectly where I want it to be. Alright, so we're going to zoom out here, and let's start with tracing the inner body here. So I'll untoggle the visibility of all the other ones. To make it easier to see our sketch lines, I'll right click here on the inner, and then I'll go to opacity control, bring that to 10%. All right, I'm gonna zoom in here, and you can see what that does. So it basically, if I undo, see how that's dark and then it's really light, so I'll be able to see my line. L4 line, I'm gonna start right at the center origin. I'm gonna go straight up here, and we're just gonna position that right on the line here. So we're just going to reference that mesh file to trace this. Now I didn't worry about getting that straight, so I'm going to select it and do a vertical constraint there. And I'm not going to worry too much about getting this design perfectly dimensioned and constrained, but a few of these lines it'll be important to do that too. So here, let's say 31.25, we'll make that 31.3. And then the rest of it, we're just going to kind of trace. So L for line, I'll take this, go across, and then we're going to go down. So here I'm going to go down right to this, where this arc starts, and click the check mark. And then we're going to come down here, and I'm going to do this bottom section. I'm going to click here, go up to this arc here. And then if I left click and hold, my line here transitions to an arc. So I'm going to do that. And then go straight to this point here and click the check mark. Next, you know what, we'll do the same thing here. We're gonna create an arc right here. So left click to continue this line, and instead of left click and clicking again, I'm left clicking and hold to transition right to an arc. Hit that check mark there. And I'm gonna connect these 2 points here. Now if you're able to connect these curvatures with arcs, do that instead of just going straight to the spline. There'll be times where we have a more complex curve and we'll need to use the spline curve. But for the most part, if you can get away with using your arc tool, do that. It keeps your sketches a little more simple here. So we're click on both of these endpoints, and you can see here I'm going to go ahead and click to set that bulge. And there we have it. We have a pretty good representation there of that outline. So here we can see that's what we're working with. And then we can take this and revolve it. So again, I'm not gonna worry about making these perfectly constrained, so don't worry about that. This is gonna get us close enough. We're gonna kind of get the general idea for how this design works, and then we can come back and design it in a way that's more defined and constrained. In fact, what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna cheat here. I'm gonna select everything and just lock it in place for now by using my fix constraint. All right, finish that sketch, and then we're gonna go to create, revolve, select our profile here, and then our axis is going to be the center line we made, and we've got our revolution there. So here what you want to do is untoggle that inner sort of back and forth here, or that inner mesh body, and you should see you have a solid mesh body there. We'll untoggle sketches for now, just kind of compare them and see how they perfectly fit on top of each other. You know, if you're off, you can go back and adjust your sketch curves here. Or also, if it's off, you may have not moved this mesh right at the center. So go back and tweak that movement. But this works really well, so we'll call this inner solid. Okay, now we can continue on with the other bodies. We'll untoggle the inner mesh and the inner solid. Let's bring in the middle mesh here, and then we're going to right click, opacity control, bring that down to 10%. And here we're gonna go back to that sketch, and we're gonna continue editing this by putting all the sketches into one. We can create a separate sketch for each body, and that's a fine way to do it as well. But here I'm just gonna kind of keep it all condensed into one. So we're just gonna keep going back to that same sketch instead of creating new sketches here. All right, so now what we're going to do here is we can see we have our middle body there. And for this one, what we're gonna do is just trace this inner wall and then the outer wall. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm gonna click L for line, snap it right to that wall here where it starts. So you can see it because it's just a little sort of darker shader peach kind of color compared to that outer wall there. So I'm just gonna create a line there. All I did was line up these 2 points. Again, the top and the bottom here. Not worrying about constraints or dimensions, just kind of tracing right now. Now that I've got those 2 lines, I'm going to come in with my arc tool. So we'll go to create 3-point arc, and I'm just going to connect those 2 endpoints of those lines, and then set that bulge there to give us our arc. And then let's do the same thing here with that bottom section, or the outside section output. We'll start at the bottom. Here I'm gonna again transition from a line to an arc here by left clicking and going into an arc. And then we're gonna go up and zoom out a bit. I'm gonna go straight here and then transition to another arc. Now this is the part where I'm not gonna worry so much about matching this perfectly. I just wanna keep keeping the design simple where I don't need complexity. So we're gonna go a line to an arc. If you did want, you can tweak this and use the spline curves and more arcs to follow that exactly, but we're gonna keep this on the simple side and only fuss about the things that really do matter. So now we're gonna connect those outer 2 points again with our 3-point arcs. So here we're gonna click 1, click 2 here, and then just go ahead and zoom in to match up that radius, and then we're good. All right, so now we have this. If I untoggle middle here, we have this sort of profile. I can kind of just double check that it follows the profile really well. And we're going to finish sketch, create, revolve. Our profile is selected. We're going to go with the center axis here, and there we have it. And just want to confirm, if I untoggle body and toggle it back in, kind of see that it perfectly matches our middle mesh there. And then let's go ahead and rename this body to middle solid. Actually, there's one important thing here we want to do before we move on. Let's go back to that sketch, and that is here, the distance between these 2 bodies here. We want to make sure we have enough clearance between these 2 bodies so that when we 3D print it, they don't fuse together. So here I'm going to just click D for dimension and make sure I've got enough spacing there. 0.367, that's good. You want to, I'd say at least 0.3 millimeters apart. I'm going to go ahead and just play it safe and make it 0.4. Okay, and the other thing you want to make sure you have here, and to illustrate this, I'm going to draw a vertical line here, and I'm going to move it over. And so I'm going to line it up to the bottom here of that inner body, to the right to this edge. And so as this gets pulled up, what you want to make sure is that it is going to interfere with that middle portion here, because this is what's going to stop it from coming out. So you want to make sure you've got enough material here that this bottom section is going to hit it. Just make sure you have those 2 things in place, that clearance and that interference. All right, finished sketch, and now we're ready to go on to our outer body. Okay, I'll untoggle my middle solid and my middle mesh. Let's bring in our outer mesh. Right click, go to opacity control, bring that down to 10%. And this one is pretty easy. We just have to draw out 2 arcs to grab that outer profile and then revolve it. So let's go into that sketch, and then we're gonna grab our arc tool. So 3-point arc. I'm gonna place it here and then go straight up. Place another point. Not going to worry about this little arc here. I'm just going to go straight up, sort of projecting where that would meet. And then let's see, come out here, grab that bulge there, so we have that arc. And then let's do another one here, right there, create that arc here. And then let's connect these 2. So L for line, I'm going to grab this endpoint, connect it here. Let's make sure that this is horizontal by adding that constraint to it. And let's go back. The bottom, we already have this line here. What I want to do is make these two, the top and the bottom, the same distance. I'm going to go with 2 millimeters there. And then let's do the same thing to the top. Select this, make that 2 millimeters. All right, so here things shifted over a little bit. I'm just going to double click to select this and move it over. All right, let's zoom into the bottom here. And I can see that this part here is intersecting here. Let's untoggle the mesh. So what we want to do is actually move this over. But I have a problem where it's constrained. This line here is dimension, so this endpoint is constrained here. So let's do this. I'm going to click on this point. I'm going to delete that constraint and free this arc from that point. And let's go ahead and connect these again. You know, now I can should be able to take this and move it out. This is also constrained here. Let's untoggle this dimension. Okay, now we should see, yeah, so we can move this here. Now we can go in and add the dimension. Issues here, we've got like 2 lines overlapping each other, so it makes it a little confusing and you have to remove constraints. But okay, now, so that's 2 millimeters, the top is 2 millimeters. I'm gonna go ahead and set the same distance from here to here that I did, so let's do 0.4 millimeters. And let's bring that mesh into view now. So that's the outer. And let's see how it lines up. Can bring this a little bit over. This kind of extends out past a little bit, but that's fine. That's because I want that outer wall to be the 2 millimeter thickness. So that's no problem. The important thing is that these spacings here are the same, and we're going to do that same interference check. So let me draw a vertical line here, and I'm going to take this, line it up to this edge here. So when this body here is pulled up, I want to make sure that it's going to collide with this section here, which it does right there. So we are good on that part. Okay, so everything else, you know, don't want to move that. I'm going to do that same cheat where I'm going to click or select everything to make sure that I don't move it. I'm going to fix, I think I unfixed, you have to be careful because I selected things that were fixed and unfixed, so it just unfixed everything. So I'm going to select everything and click the fix constraint. Basically, you want to see that everything is green, green or black, and it fixes it into place. Again, this is, you know, not the way I normally approach my designs, but like I said, this is more of a tracing method. So we're allowed to cheat a little bit, and then if we want to come in and add, you know, constraints and make this more defined, we have the option to do that. All right, finish sketch, create, revolve. Let's bring in that sketch into view. This time we're going to grab that outer profile. Central axis is going to be that center line here. And there we go. We have got that body. Again, we can kind of compare it with that outer and see how it looks. So here, let's rename this outer solid, and now we can turn all 3 on, and we have our inner, middle, and outer bodies. Let's look at the bottom here. You want to make sure you have that gap in between each body, that 0.4 millimeter clearance. And let's do a section analysis here by going to inspect section analysis, and we'll grab that center plane. We're gonna click here to flip it, and you should see something like this. Okay, and that takes care of creating all 3 of our bodies. Okay, next what I want to address here was a request to make an amendment to this file, which is to make more of like a top hat for the snowman instead of what it currently has. Let's go back to that sketch and see how we can change this to make it look more like a top hat. All right, so here what we'll have to do is kind of amend this part here. I'm gonna just double click this section here and go to unfix. I'm gonna just delete these lines here, and let's kind of look at recreating this. So maybe take this, go across, you know, roughly 8 millimeters or so. I'm gonna go down about 10, and then here's the part where I'm gonna kind of go in with the hat. I'm gonna go right, down, and then left. click the check mark. I want something like that. This part I'm actually going to choose to put in some dimension. So make that 8. This one 10. We'll go out about 4. I want the thickness here on the brim to be, let's say just make that 2 millimeters. I'm actually going to delete this part here and recreate that. Let's see if I, come in with an arc, and I want this part here to kind of just be like the face. But here's where I'm kind of saying I have to be careful, right? Because I have to make sure, just make a line and make it vertical. If I take this line, no other part of this body can be past this sort of shoulder here, because this shoulder is what has to interfere with that middle section. If the face does, then we're gonna have a problem where it's only gonna come like this far and we won't see the rest of it. So we have to tweak this to bring it in. I have another constraint here I'm worried about, because the way this prints, this is going to be an overhang, so I really am going to have to limit this to like 0.5 millimeter. Now let's bring this, it's coincident to that point. And so here, let me bring this line back. This face, the cheeks there would have to be like this, and I'm not really liking that. That's like too skinny of a face for a snowman, and I want it to be a little more round, so let me delete that. I'll actually delete this, and let's make a new line, sort of that shoulder. I'm gonna need it to come in more, and I think to give me more control over the curvature of the face there, I'm gonna come in with a spline. So here's where I say reserve your spline to where you actually need it. And in here I'm gonna just do one point in the middle and then connect it. So I'm just gonna eyeball it here. I know this has to be, again, I want a certain distance there, but if I want that curvature, I'm gonna have to like bring this maybe in a little more. Let me bring this line in, see where we are. Now that's gonna have to move in more. And you want to have enough space so that it's not like colliding with it or rubbing against it. So maybe a little more. And I think that looks good. Maybe even kind of play with this angle here. You have the freedom to play with the parts that are not really gonna affect the design so much to get the look that you want. So here, where I just want to make sure I've got a round enough face, so I'll kind of move this in a little bit. So let's see how that looks when we create the revolve. So let's untoggle outer and middle. We may have to go back and give it a reselection because we kind of deleted some lines and it doesn't like that. So I'm going to select this as the profile. Click OK. Yeah, I think that looks good. Next, let's do the final part, which is to make the eyes and nose. And to do that, what I'm going to do is create an offset plane here. So construct offset plane, grab that center plane there, that front plane. I'm going to move it out just so that it's right in front of the face there. And then I'm going to create a sketch right on that plane here. And we'll hit P for project. I'll choose bodies, click on this body, click OK. And that way I can remove the inner solid here and have the outline of the body. I'm going to just create 2 circles here. And then we'll create a triangle with just the line tool. And depending how, I want this to look, or, how symmetrical or cartoonish I want it to look, I can come in and I can say, let's make these eyes equal, for example. And then I can dimension one of them, maybe 3 millimeters. I can work on that spacing. If I draw a center line here, I can actually then take advantage of my symmetry constraint, where I can grab the symmetry constraint and I can say make this eye and this eye symmetric about this line here, and then that way if I move them up and down, they're perfectly symmetric. The nose here, I'm just gonna maybe move this. I may keep this a little more not perfect, this doesn't have to line up in the center. Alright, that looks good. I'm going to click Finish Sketch. And here, let's bring in that inner solid body, and I'm going to use my Emboss tool. So Create, down to Emboss. select these profiles, the eyes and the nose, and then for my face, I'll select my body, my bosom depth. I'm only going to go 0.5 millimeter emboss there. Click OK. Let's untoggle the sketch here, visibility, to see how that looks. Okay, I think the eyes are too close and the nose is a little too big, so let's kind of go into that sketch. And again, we don't even have to go into the sketch. We can kind of just bring the visibility into view here and then just kind of amend it and see how it looks with our design. Let me push these eyes out maybe a little more here, maybe a little down. I think that looks a little bit better. Maybe we'll center that nose just a little bit. Okay, and then I'll just add some fillets to this. F for fillet, gonna select each of these edges here and maybe do a 0.5 millimeter fillet. Click OK. And we've got eyes and a nose. Okay, one last tweak here. I want this nose a little longer. Move this up and make this a little longer. Okay, and that should do it. Alright, so there's our Mr. Snowman. Okay, one final thing to do, and now that's create the top. Alright, to create the top, I'm going to create a sketch, and let's put it on the front plane here. And here what I will do is let's just untoggle the inner and middle, leave the outer body, hit P for project, select it, click OK. Now we will untoggle the body, so we just have the outline here. I'm going to grab my arc tool, so let's grab our 3-point arc, and I'm going to make an arc between these two endpoints. And the bulge right now really doesn't matter, it could be anything, because we're going to find it by making it tangent. So I'll grab our tangent constraint, and you can see we made it now that it follows the outer line here perfectly that we projected. And then we're going to just grab a line from the center origin straight up. Alright, finish that sketch, create, revolve, grab this profile and rotate around the central axis here. And there we have it, we've got a top there. And we're going to take that top and take our inner and let's do a cut. So modify, combine. Target body is going to be our top and our target body is going to be the hat. We're going to do a cut. We want to click keep tools, click OK. And there it is. If I untoggle the inner solid there, I'm going to come in here and do a modify offset face just to do a little bit of a clearance here. I'm going to do a 0.05 millimeter clearance there just to give me a nice tight friction fit when I put the hat in. And let's now look at, let's bring these two bodies and then do a section analysis. Inspect section analysis here. We can see how that looks. Alright, good thing I checked because it looks like I went the wrong way with the offset because they overlap. So let's cancel this and go to that offset feature. And this should be negative 0.05. Now let's bring in that analysis. Let's see, yeah. So that's what we want, a little gap. Always a good idea to do these section analysis because they reveal some mistakes that you may have overlooked. Lastly, let's just name this hat. And then untoggle analysis. There we have it. So let's look at this one more time. We have our inner, our middle, and then our outer. And then if we do an analysis here, we can see how they all three will come together. And you want to make sure that as each of these are pulled up, so you can kind of almost like simulate this in a way here where I'm going to grab that, nothing interferes until this part here, you know, and let's do the same thing with that inner body to just make sure that if we click on it, as this goes up, you know, nothing, a little tight right here. Yeah, that's going to be a problem because what will happen is I actually did this and I was playing around with this. It's going to hit here and stop and we want to go all the way here. So that was defined by this here. So if I move this, yeah, that's a little too close. So what we're going to do is a quick change here. We're going to have to unfix this. And maybe move this in a bit. This wall may have to be a little bit thinner for this to work. And let's go ahead and move that. I think we have enough space there. So we should be good to get that clearance. And you know, you can play with that. What I'm showing here is more of a method. May have to tweak this a little more if you find that it kind of still a little too tight. You can just go in and change this. You know, may have to move this over a little bit, or maybe even change like the radius here. Like if I wanted this wall thickness here to be maintained, that's, you know, 3 millimeters, we should be good there, but I can always change, unfix this guy and kind of bring this out a little more, because I've got plenty of room here where this, you know, that I've got space here where nothing inside here is interfering with that. So yeah, so I could even do that and make this a little thicker. Maybe even come in a little more and grab this to kind of see that this, I've got enough spacing here. And I could even do an inspect between these two. 0.3, you know, maybe going even a little bit more. Okay, I think we're good there. Finish that sketch, and let's go ahead and print this to see how it works. All right, let's go ahead and pop this out, see what we got. So you do have to be careful here because these come out. This one's a little, okay, a little stubborn there. Put these back into place. So let's first test and see, make sure it was right, if this works. Yeah, it works. This part here, the shoulder, could have followed, like the curvature there, could have followed this curvature right here a little more, because it's sort of abrupt how it ends there. It's almost like he's wearing a turtleneck. So I think I will go back and tweak that. And let's try the hat, and I'm just realizing I forgot to do the handle here, the hook. But let's just check the fit. That's a good fit. Okay, let's go ahead and quickly make that little hanging hook. Can't believe I forgot that part. All right, we're gonna go to construct. Let's bring in an offset plane here off of that bottom plane. I'm gonna bring that to somewhere here where it intersects our top here. So the distance is not critical, but if you want to make it set dimension, I'll do 35 millimeters. And I'm going to create a sketch right on that plane. Here we're going to come in with a polygon, and I'll do a circumscribed polygon. Put it at the center there. Let's do like 3 millimeters. And then let's make this an octagon instead of a pentagon. And then I'll take, here we'll untoggle this body so we can see it a little better. Take this top edge and make it horizontal. Finish that sketch, E for extrude. Let's go up here, bring that body back into view. I'm just going to kind of eyeball it, to be honest, to see how far we want to go up. Maybe 5 millimeters. Looks good. And then we'll do a join. Maybe 1 more millimeter, make it 6. Click OK. And then I'm going to create a sketch on this mid plane here. And this plane intersects this body here, so it's going to go right through the middle of the octagon here. What I'm going to do is I'll hit P for project. You can do project, but I guess here it's better to do, it's going to end up in the same result, but let's do intersect. And we'll click on this surface here. Now we have this line here that intersects our model. You know, yeah, let's do that again, create intersect. And I want these side edges to actually be intersected, but we can project it. It's going to work the same way here. So I'm going to project, let's just do the specified entities. That way it'll just give me this line instead of the entire body. All right, click OK. And here what I'm going to do is now create an arc. So let's go to arc, 3-point arc. Click both endpoints. make our arc. And the reason I wanted to project these side lines there is because now I can come in with the tangent constraint and make this tangent to this line. Do the same thing with this line, which it already is. Finish that sketch. Now to extrude this, I'm gonna go with a thin extrude here, select our arc and go out, but we're gonna do a symmetric distance. So instead of one side, we'll do symmetric. The total distance, actually, let's first get what that is. This line here, if I click on it, it's gonna say it's 2.485. All right, and then we'll go extrude, thin extrude, select our arc, one side, change that to symmetric. And then here we'll enter that dimension to go that exact distance, 2.485. And that's going to be total distance. Wall thickness 1 millimeter is fine. We'll click join, and there we have it. Probably what I'll do is maybe I'll add a fillet on this and these edges here. Maybe a 0.5 millimeter fillet. All right, click OK. And there we have it. That's our little hangy thingy. All right, here is the little cap, and I can see already that I think I'm losing steam because look how small I made that. I don't know what I was thinking. Let's see, that's the other one. So why did I make it so small? All right, let's check the fit. Fits good, it's just tiny. Okay, let's fix that. Alright, back at Fusion, let's go back into that sketch here, and I'm going to change this from 3 to 6. Finish sketch. That'll make it bigger, and then just this extrusion here we have to fix. Let's grab that distance, we'll inspect from that point to this point here. Distance 4.9. I'm going to click there to copy it, and then we'll go back to that extrusion. Just paste that there. There we have it. We're good. That's much better. All right, got the modified snowman head and cover the top here that I fixed. So, okay, here what we're going to do is let's take this off. Substitute this head here for this head, and let's see how that fits. Here's the original, and here's the new one. A little better, still think it can be improved. I'm going to leave that up to you. Alright, let's put this and put the top on. See how it looks. I'm gonna go down here. Can be a little better friction fit here. At 0.05. You can put a little dab of glue there, I guess, if you want to make sure it doesn't come out. But works out well. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and you were able to follow along. If you have any questions, leave them below. If you're looking for more structured courses and improving your Fusion skills, check out my links below. I've got online courses as well as my weekly live class you can join. If you simply want to support my channel, check out my Patreon link below. Alright guys, see you in a few.